predicated on seafaring, right? So you would include people like Vikings and people like that as Moors, right? This is why they tell you free white people in the definition. They include all different types of people because they're dealing with nations who navigated, who were part of ancient treaties. And I could name the 6 ancient treaties, but we could, you know what I mean, we'll do that another time. But there were 6 ancient treaties that united all the tribal families on the planet. All these planets did trade in places like the Isle of Man, which is a small island off of Europe. You know what I mean? Off of England, pardon me. So we're dealing with ancient indigenous cultures that migrated via navigation of boats and ships. Now, we didn't need giant boats because if you're familiar with the Filipino islands, you know you can island hop in canoes. You can get from Africa to the furthest island in the Filipinos because they're so close, you can island hop. Well, you can island hop from Europe to the Americas via Greenland and the islands that are in between that the map don't show you. All right? So when they talk about the Bering Strait, those were the Asiatics that came over here at another time. The actual migration that our people took to come here from places like...
So the Bering Strait, that was Moses. And it'll say that in Numbers and Deuteronomy. All the places in Numbers and Deuteronomy, 33 and 32, would line up in Utah area. You can check it out yourself.
The Middle East, Kemet, Africa, East Africa, came through what we call Europe, Greenland, England, things of that nature. Now, anybody who wants to question this information, all you have to do is look up a group called the Micmac. The Micmac are located in Canada on down to what we call Maine, right? The Micmac have a hieroglyphic script. And within that hieroglyphic script, they also have the Lord's Prayer. So we're dealing with Christians, right? The early Christians, who are not the Christians that we sit up here and fight with. The early Christians were people from the land that we call Kemet. They're called the Coptics. Greek is not a language. Greeks speak Coptic, right? So when we say they spoke Greek, people don't know what they're talking about and they're misleading you. There's no such thing as Greek. These people were Coptics, right? These people were Africans who migrated into a different area. It's packed right now. You can't set up something with all these people here. You got to find a little bit of space for yourself so you can have your own space so you can thrive as a nation. So that's what nations was doing. So we have ancient nations that have ancient treaties, right? Those treaties were interrupted in what you call the Inquisition. The Inquisition started in a place called Denmark, right? Amongst white tribes. Why? Because those white tribes had treaties with the other tribes all over the planet. And these people are the people that you would complexion. The reason why terms like tawny Moor were introduced is because the European associated all Moors with being dark because the original people that he met navigating were dark. So the same way we associate hockey players with being white, right? But as we taught the amalgamated Moors and people like that how to navigate, now you have something called tawny Moor to differentiate, because that means light-skinned navigator. See what I'm saying? Because they had to differentiate, because now this knowledge was being taught to different nations, right? So you got a lot of people talking about we're not Moors, we're not this. Moor is not a nationality. It's a general title for indigenous people who come from navigating nations, all right? Now,
it's a general title just like black.
Just like black. Because when you say black, you don't know what nation you're talking about, right? Somebody asked me my nationality, I'm Lenny Lenape. That means the real people. We got a language, we got a river, we got everything. I'll take you to my burial grounds, everywhere. You're standing in my territory right now, right? If we went to Africa right now, everybody would bow down and kiss the ground and respect every deity in Kemet, in Africa, wherever you may be. But our people run around here and don't respect any of the indigenous histories, deities, or nothing, and they wonder why we're in such a bad position, right? You're disrespecting your mothers, you're disrespecting your fathers, your uncles, put it this way, when we start dealing with genetics, right, you got 4 grandparents. When you double that, you got 8. So every generation you go back doubles, right? So when somebody tells you their great-grandmother was from Nigeria, what about the other 31 of your grandparents that produced you? Because every time you go back, you got to double your grandparents. So what I'm saying is we are a product of international trade. We are a product of many nations coming together, dealing with trade. When you deal with trade, you also trade genetics. That's a very heavy part of trade because you have to renew your genetics. If you keep intermixing amongst yourself, we know what that produces, right? So you trade genetics with different people around the planet as well as goods. So this is why we appear the way we appear here in the Americas, because the Americas was the first melting pot. The first cooking pot was a turtle shell. Turn it upside down. This is Turtle Island. Gumbo, Louisiana. You understand? That's the culture of America, and that's the culture that drives the world. It's the combination of all cultures. Even in Kemet would not have been a great civilization if it was just one group of people. Because no new ideas can be brought in, nothing can happen. It'll just be a stagnant culture. You got many, and if people want to deny that, we can just talk about multiple symbols for the same deal.
Boom, right there. Egypt have many different nationalities. They came and they replaced Mizraim and made it Egypt.
Which shows that you're dealing with different people from different areas, but dealing with the same concept. And the same thing can be said over here. You know what I mean? You run around looking for Ma'at, go to a powwow, you'll see Ma'at walking around. She's not going to be on the wall, living, breathing. You understand? My Ma'at is my clan mothers. You understand? Because if my clan mothers, my elders tell me no, it's a wrap. Because I want to maintain my respect within my family, within my tribe. You understand?
So the slave trade never happened?
Who said that? I told you the slave trade started with Native Americans being brought to England. That's what I said. I never said that. You know what I'm saying? The Africans that eventually were brought here, you know what I mean? They were brought here because they couldn't enslave us anymore. You understand? Why? Because you can't enslave a man in his own home. You know what I mean? And I'm telling you right now, all these inventions, they give credit to African Americans. Ain't no African gonna come to the Americas and tell you when to plant your stuff. It's a science you gotta study. It ain't the same over there as it is here. You gotta know the land, right? So all these achievements that we ascribe to African Americans, these achievements by Native Americans who had to take on an identity of being African American because they was hanging us. But you think they was hanging people because they was Africans. Africans just want to go home. Nigga from here want to take his shit.
You think they was hanging us because we was Africans. Fool, they was hanging you because you was an Israelite, because you was an indigenous aboriginal. Not because you was African. They brought the African man in there, had them rape all your Israelite women. That's why there's not a big population of lighter skinned people. It's because we was getting fucked. We was getting murdered. And the darker skinned were getting promoted. And that's where Willie Lynch comes in. And it was the perversion of Willie Lynch because it flipped it upside down on us. And we the one looking bad now. When we were the leaders of Israel, and they made them turn against us by telling them that we were the seeds of the Europeans. We were scum. We weren't the true. Get rid of them. They would side with the Europeans. No, it wasn't us. As I showed you, it was the dark Edomites, not us light-skinned Israelites.
It over. That's a threat. You understand? So all these niggas you seen getting hung in the South, it ain't what you think. They hanging these people because they knew the routes. You understand? They hanging these people because they all had the potential to be Harriet Tubman. Because they all could lead these people in a path to get them away from these Europeans.
You heard that?
You know what I'm saying? I can name countless tribes that relocated up into mountains because they didn't want to deal with these Europeans.
Just like my family.
You know what I'm saying? And those same tribes are still here,
relocated
but we under, you know, we call Negro, we call color, we call all these different things. And when we try and bring this information to a lot of our people who are black and proud, and I understand that. I understand what's, you know, the process that made us proud to be black. Everything we came through.
Like my brother.
But the point of the matter is you all come from tribes. I don't care.
I'll be like my brother. He's got a European Filipino dad. His hair straight as fuck. He kind of get a beard. I mean, I got a Cherokee father, and I got a full beard Afro hair. My mom's dad is Afro. She got an Afro. I got an Afro. That's what it's about.
If you know your tribe or not, you descend from a tribe. And tribes are the only one that have legal jurisdiction over lands. See, the problem is our people don't rise above corporate law. Corporate law is the glass in that. I understand what's the process that made us proud to be black. Everything we came through. But the point of the matter is you all come from tribes. I don't care, Riz, you all come from tribe. Riz, you all come from tribe. Riz, you all come from tribes. I don't care if you know your tribe or not, you descend from a tribe. And tribes are the only one that have legal jurisdiction over lands. See, the problem is our people don't rise above corporate law. Corporate law is the glass ceiling that you cannot rise above. When you rise above corporate law and understand what international law, which is based on treaty, right? When the police come through here and they snatch us all up, they're going to snatch me with you. But when the remedy comes, my remedy is going to be much different. Because they know.
See, what he's talking about is he's right now separated from being an American, and he's changed his he's changed his status, and he's corrected it, and now his status is a Lapani Indian. So when he gets arrested, he has a different agreement with the private organization because he's not necessarily a part of it. He's an Aboriginal. So when he gets arrested, they can't detain him, or they have to fund him whatever his UCC represents that to be. If it's $1 million for a day, then they have to pay him. So that's why he's saying if he gets arrested, it's going to be a whole lot different for him, because they'll see that his status is not as the same as ours, which we are American citizens, not really. We're United States citizens, and we're subject to the laws and statutes of the private corporation, which is the United States of America. Well, that's what he's talking about.
Know who I am, and they know I don't have they don't have jurisdiction over me via any of this false paperwork. You understand? So my thing is this: we looking for people, we looking for a way out, but all the people who are trying to provide a way out don't have jurisdiction over this land. We need to deal with the people who have the actual jurisdiction of this land, and we need to empower them. The same way that the gays were able to create a platform for themselves politically and things of that nature, we have to come together as a people. We have to rally behind the people who actually have the authority, or what's going to happen is the same thing that happened in Haiti. Now, for a lot of people to understand what happened in Haiti, when Haiti overthrew the French, all they did was step into the powers of position that the French held. They didn't go back to their indigenous culture or their indigenous way of life. So now what you have is, you have a second world government being overthrown. When I say second world government, I'm saying the second government on any land is corporate government. The first government is indigenous, or the tribal government, which signs the charters and the deeds, which allows the corporations to operate on your land.
And this is why the U.S. government said, we're really afraid of mutated military soldiers. We're afraid of tribes. That's why, because tribes have rights, because they're tribes, they have the first right to the land. They're indigenous.
Yeah. That's called the second world. The third world is somebody who's left out of the first and second world, meaning you're not a tribal government and you're not a corporate government. So when Haiti overthrew the corporate government that was instilled by France, and they didn't reinstate their indigenous government dealing with their clan mothers and their tribes and things of that nature, they fell into what you call a third world country. Now, these third world countries don't have any allies because they're not aligned with the indigenous tribes, and they're not aligned with the corporations because they just overthrew one. So now what happens, you have Haiti in a situation that it's in now. Also, you have a situation like that with the Lakota out on the reservations. They third world countries because they signed away their indigenous rights, they agreed to go on reservations, and now that they don't have no remedy, right, nobody is responsible for them, they've fallen into a situation of poverty, you know what I mean, and it's worse than any project in any hood you ever been to. And just one more thing I want to say. when we talk about reservations, you go to a reservation, you see poverty, you see churches, and you see liquor stores. When you go to any hood, you see poverty, you see churches, and you see liquor stores. So what make you think you're not on a reservation? Yeah, that's what's really going on here. And all these other people posturing, trying to push their religion. I ain't never said one word about my people's religion, because I don't have to, because that's personal. Right? When I talk about my history, I'm not going to talk about the history of my religion. Talk about the history of my people and us having jurisdiction over these Europeans here. Right? So ain't no foreign religion going to save you in our situations. That's personal. Keep it to yourself. What we have to deal with is who has the real power and jurisdiction. And it's not Kemet, right? It's not Nubia. It's none of these places here. The people who have jurisdiction are the tribes. And we need to deal with the tribes, whether you know your tribe or not. That's who you need to empower. The same way old people empower other old people and they control their votes, the same way homosexuals control their votes, we need to control our stuff dealing with the fact that we're indigenous people. But we also have to understand that just because you are melanated, don't think you're not a colonizer. Because if you hear from another land and you pushing another culture here, you colonizing. Now, when you come here and you respect the cultures that was here and you assist them, they'll assist you. And I'm telling you now, it's groups that have been at the UN for the past 2 weeks that I'm sure none of you know about. And they look just like me and you. And a lot of y'all will call them crazy because you say they trying to be something they not. But they sitting in the UN banging on the beast for real. You understand? And that's who we need to start dealing with. We need to start dealing with real movements that have real power and jurisdiction. I understand the street movements, we feel good about ourselves, we feel like we're doing something, but when we start dealing with real politics and really taking control of our cultures and our futures, we have to deal with the people who have jurisdiction over the land. We have to get behind them. So all I'm saying is the same way we come to these rallies, these events, this is just what a powwow look like. Same thing. We need to start dealing with them. We need to start dealing with those nations because they are represented as nations. And when the European came here, there was no such thing as an RBG nation. There's no treaties for the RBG, right? There's no treaty for Muslims. There's no treaty for none of these people, right? But there's treaties for the original tribes that was here. And every one of y'all got a piece of that in you. Whether your father was from Africa and your mother was from the Americas, you're still entitled to your mother's inheritance, right? So this is what we have to start dealing with. This is why they passed the one-drop rule. They passed the one-drop rule because you had our brothers and sisters who were so amalgamated and light skinned, they could pass themselves off for white. But when they go home to their black mothers. And they feared that. You understand? So they had to create racial categories, and they had to stunt your development based on that racial category. So as long as we keep feeding into these racial categories, right, we playing their game. People need to find out their nationality, and no disrespect to the Moors, but Moorish Americans not a nationality. You know what I'm saying? And I love the Moors. I love how they build. I love the information they bring to these racial categories, right? We playing their game. People need to find out their nationality, and no disrespect to the Moors, but Moorish Americans not a nationality. And no disrespect to the Moors, but Moorish Americans not a nationality. To the Moors, but Moorish Americans not a nationality. You know what I'm saying? And I love the Moors. I love how they build. I love the information they bring to the forefront. But let's deal with it. And I've dealt with Moors who admit to that. But let's just deal with it. Nationality, you're going to deal with a language, a location, more than likely a river, right? My people are called the Lenape. Okay.
One last question. I'm sorry, Bam is closing this. I want to get this in before we leave. Saying what you said about the Moors and that not being a nationality, how do you feel about Noble Drew Ali and what he brought to this country?
Noble Drew Ali did what he was supposed to do. He woke people up. Because see, when you study Noble Drew Ali, he'll tell you he was part Cherokee. So, him establishing his jurisdiction through his...
How do you feel about Noble Drew Ali? How do you feel about Noble Drew Ali and what he brought to this country?
Noble Drew Ali did what he was supposed to do. He woke people up. Because see, when you study Noble Drew Ali, he'll tell you he was part Cherokee. Study Noble Drew Ali, he'll tell you he was part Cherokee. Study Noble Drew Ali, he'll tell you he was part Cherokee. People up. Because see, when you study Noble Drew Ali, he'll tell you he was part Cherokee.
Boom! You're part You're Cherokee. You are Cherokee. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you are Cherokee. And Hiram Art showed us this out of the hidden ancestral, the hidden survival guide, the survival handbook. Hey, let me not mess up the title. Let me look it up real fast. Alright, here it is. This is from Hiram Art. The hidden ancestral identity of the American Negro. Why Black Lives Matter. So this book right here is dope, and it shows you that you're the northeastern mound builders, planet keepers of America.